Med Center gang is here. Now we're going to get into the crux of what all this controversy is about. It's about an RFP. It's about a scoring system. It's about $2.6 million. It's about for-profit versus not-for-profit. It's about you. Joseph, an RFP is generated.
Correct.
Were you alarmed when you heard there was going to be an RFP coming out, or just another? You figured another bid?
I knew this was happening.
It was a different game this time.
I think we knew. We kept hearing that there was going to be some competition for this contract.
Now, RFP is request for proposal. Basically, It's a bid.
Right.
So you do your bid. Was there anything unusual in this RFP?
Well, the original RFP had some issues that we were concerned about, just from a compliance standpoint. And I think the city, after they had issued the RFP, recognized it also and actually ended up changing the RFP.
Now, one of the problems with the RFP, there was a fee that the city wanted to impose on ambulance services.
Right. They wanted, what they were looking for was for us to give back some of the revenue that we get from charging people for picking them up when there's an emergency.
So they wanted some sort of, like, I guess, a taxation or a big, as far as people in Jersey City would call it.
Well, I think they called it revenue sharing. And
they wanted to cut no matter any way you looked at it. They wanted a $2.6 million cut.
Yeah, I think there was an issue around giving the city back some money for the ambulance service that we provide.
They wanted 2.6 as a big on the ambulance services. And obviously they researched that, and there's a Hatch Act, there's a bunch of laws in place where you have Medicare reimbursement that you can't get a buck on that.
Right.
So they changed it.
Right.
And they put in this first responder situation.
Right.
Now, first off, explain what a first responder is, because that's different than the ambulance guys.
Sure.
So let's make sure everybody understands. This first responder is far different than the ambulance. Go ahead, Rob.
Sure. So basically what the first responder program is designed to do is to allow certain assets or certain resources in the community to get to a call potentially before the ambulance. So the idea is that, when you have resources in the community, whether they're fire trucks as we do in Jersey City or police cars as they do in some other communities, that there's a chance that they might be closer than the ambulances and where they're located. So in those situations where it's particularly life-threatening or there's potential for some serious bodily harm, they'll send everybody at the call. It's kind of, throwing as much as you can at the call to make sure that somebody with the resources to do CPR, to defibrillate, to do some basic, life-saving administration is there as quickly as is possible.
Do they also assess the situation? Are they on a radio saying we're giving some oxygen, there's blood, or are they communicating with an ambulance?
They have the ability to communicate, but they're usually there. Again, our average response time is about 6 minutes. So if the fire truck gets there just a few minutes beforehand, it takes a few minutes to assess someone. So usually by the time they would get to that point where they might be giving a report or something like that, we're shortly behind, or we've arrived, or in some situations we arrive even before the fire truck arrives.
And 6 minutes is way below the standard. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you're way on the plus side. Yeah, two situations with just one came to light today out with the was it Milburn shopping mall where the Hoboken gentleman was shot. Took the ambulance 18 minutes. There was a volunteer ambulance corps there. 18 minutes to respond. Then ran into the situation that the garage was too low to get the ambulance in.
Yep.
Wow.
Because I have a van. There's some garages I can't get in because of the van, and they had to run up 5 levels of this parking garage with a stretcher. Then you had a situation in New York City where they implemented a new 911 system, and somebody dropped the ball. They didn't read it right, and there was a delay with that ambulance being dispatched, and the young girl passed on. There was really no correlation between the lateness of the ambulance and the girl, because she had been hit by a stray SUV. But I guarantee you there's some heavy lawsuit coming. But going back to first responder and the 6 minutes, I just want to emphasize that 6 minutes.
Yeah, and that's our average response time. And one of the things that's very interesting, we actually track our response times very differently than some other EMS agencies do, or some other public safety entities do. We track our response times from the moment we pick up the telephone. And that's quite a bit different. A lot of places they say our average response time might be 4 or 5 minutes, but that average response time is from the moment that they dispatch the ambulance, the time that the ambulance arrives. We want to be harder on ourselves. We want to make sure that we're assessing our ability to screen 911 calls, much like they do. The issue in New York had to do with the delay between the 911 call coming in and when the ambulance was dispatched.
In the RFP, Jersey City, there were points allocated for every procedure you could do every step of the RFP.
Right.
What became interesting, when it came to the cost factor, I believe it was called, if you're providing the first responder services yourself, you seem to get 25 points. If you were willing to pay the city $2.6 million, that bidder received 50 points, which really doesn't make sense because it should be a wash. If somebody's going to supply the first responders, the city doesn't have to pay anything. If somebody's going to pay $2.6 million for the city to provide these services, the city's not gaining.
Right.
If you look at it, I think you would rather have your firefighters in the house ready to fight fires than doing first responders, but that's how I would look at managing my firemen. But there shouldn't have been any bonus because really, as far as the city's concerned, it's a wash. If you handle it, fine, we're fine. If we handle it, you got to pay us 2.6. But really, there shouldn't have been 25 points allotted because,
and you know,
25 extra points because you agreed to pay 2.6.
Right. And the other interesting point of all this is that when you add up the total points, we win.
And now there were five people on the committee, and each one allocated 5 points for this, 10 points for this, and then there was that big 25-50 bonus. The Med Center, out of the 5 voters, 3 voted in favor of the other service, and 2 voted in favor of the medical center. But it was extremely close with the 3 who voted for McCabe, I believe it is. If you withdrew that 25 points, the Med Center cleaned house. If you added up all the points from all 5 judges, I'll say, Med Center had more points than the McCabe people, even with the bonus of that extra 25 points.
And if you look at the quality criteria that they used, we won hands down. Hands down. Every single voter gave us more points than McCabe.
Oh, and by the way, McCabe owns how much of McCabe ambulance? CarePoint owns how much of McCabe?
I think 70%.
Approximately 70%.
Right. Yeah. So, if I were the city, changing the format and the principles of the bid become problematic because who now is going to pay for this? If CarePoint's name's off the bid and it's just McCabe, that would imply that McCabe's going to pay the $2.6 million. Look at their financials. They lost money last year. So they're going to do this for nothing. They're going to increase the number of people that they're going to have respond in Jersey City. I will tell you, the revenue that we get from picking up patients does not cover the cost of the EMS service. So they're going to subsidize that, and they're going to pay $2.6 million for first responders. And oh, by the way, they're going to pay up to $400,000 for 911 call service that they're going to pay back to the city.
It's almost $3 million.
And then they're going to throw some money in for, I don't know, housing the ambulances or something.
Now, in any profit situation, when somebody spends $1, usually you charge $3 more. If you're buying a bottle of soda for 25 cents, you're going to charge $1. You buy a soda at the store, it's $1.25. You go to ShopRite, you're buying that same soda for 25 cents.
Right.
CarePoint's going to get that $3 million back, or McCabe. Well, listen, it's CarePoint McCabe.
I would guess.
They're going to get that $3 million back to the tune of about $12 million.
Well,
but let's not even get into their finances, which leaves something.
Well, we talked about the out-of-network thing and pushing patients through the ER. The ambulance is a perfect way to do that. Now, take them up in an ambulance and take them to the ER.
Do we want Jersey City residents out of Jersey City?
Well,
going
that's
to
the other
Bayonne
issue, yeah.
or Hoboken? That's a question
Right.
there. But the real fundamental question is, can McCabe handle Jersey City?
Well, I'll let Rob answer that one.
I think he has 14 buses or ambulances, which he has a responsibility to the city of Bayonne, for which I believe he receives $800,000 a year.
Yeah, that's curious also.
Interesting, you would charge Bayonne $800,000 a year, but give Jersey City too, and $2.6 million.
So for 7,000 calls in Bayonne, he gets $800,000. And in Jersey City, he's going to turn around and do it for nothing and subsidize the city $2.6 million. Why would he want to do that?
Contact Mayor Fulop. Tell him, go with the Jersey City Medical Center. Go to my website. Give me some emails. Tell me what you think. Support the Jersey City Medical Center. For Joe and Rob, I'm Pat O'Melia. I'll talk to you during the week. Good night.